Hi there, John here. I just wanted to share a short message before Bob and I get started talking about Old World from Mohawk Games. We recorded this conversation virtually, as of course we always do, even before current events and everything else, and we had some technical issues. Now, thankfully, Bob had recorded a backup, which was fantastic, but there are some slight lag issues in Bob's video feed, so I just wanted to share a quick clip of me playing the game here, just to let you see, first of all, what a beautiful game it is. And although it is an early access game, and there have been some bugs and things like that here and there, it's really not, visual performance has not been a problem. So I just wanted to be clear that some of the performance that you're seeing, in the following conversation are not, is not typical of the gameplay at all. As I said, the game is still something that the Mohawk Studios are working on, but really it's actually run very, very smoothly for me. And I wanted you to kind of, to see it. Spoiler alert, I really like this game. I think it's really well done and it's really good, even though it's still in early access and isn't finished just yet. I'm looking forward to playing it more, and here to Respawn, we will definitely be covering the game more. So I hope you enjoy the conversation to myself and Bob. Hello and welcome to History Respawned. This is John Harney, and in this video we're going to look at Mohawk Games' Old World. And I'm not on my own for this particular episode. I'm joined by Bob. Bob, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, John. Thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you. Are you excited about Old World?
Very much so. I'm a very big fan of Soren Johnson's work. Big fan of Civilization 4. I've got a copy of this game, which was provided by the developers, but I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet, so I'm really curious to see what you've made of it so far.
Well, I can't wait to tell you. Yeah, big thanks to Layla Johnson, who's the president of Mohawk Games, who I understand is also pretty heavily involved in the creative aspect of the game, for helping us out. If you like Civ 4, you're going to like this game. That's the first thing I'd say.
Awesome.
That's the first thing. And if viewers have never played Civ 4, you should probably totally play Civ 4. It's a very good Civ. So Soren Johnson, lead designer on Civ 4, and this game has all the kind of Civ 4 aspects to it. So if you're watching me use go around the little game map here, you'll see this all looks very Civ-y. It's a 4X game. You can see here that I have 3 cities established: Persepolis, Susa, and Pasargadae. I am the Persians. And if you've played Civ games, and particularly if you've played Civ 4, you'll feel very kind of at home here. So I'll go through quickly some of a couple of the mechanics I like, and then I'll kind of segue into the history stuff, as it were.
Cool. And
we'll talk about it that way. So if you just kind of look at what we've got here, I have a worker up here. He's toiling away there. He'll be done in 2 years. Each year is a turn. So we've done 2 turns with that farm. And the workers are great. So if I click on this worker, for example, in a very Civ 4 way, he is rooted up. He's going to be building roads for the next 4 years.
Got it.
To connect my 2 cities. And I started him all the way back here.
Yeah.
So I just set him, and I forget him. And there's a lot of that. The game clearly isn't finished yet. By the way, it's available now from the Epic Games Store, but it is early access, and there's lots of early accessy things about it. There's clearly stuff they haven't finished working on just yet, but it's very, very playable.
I was going to say, I think it's really interesting with the animation style for some of these workers, and then also for the fish that are kind of jumping around in the water. That looks very much like kind of Civ 3, Civ 4 style animation. I think that, it looks wonderful, but it does really bring me back to about 2006, 2007.
Yeah, if they could do Call to Power and bring underwater cities back for the follow-up, I'd be happy. But you see this. This was my first city, my little home city here. Persepolis is very pretty and everything. It's very nice. I've got a worker chained up because I'm all about the workers. So you see the worker here has himself set up to do roads, and over here you have a little kind of a subset of tools here of things that he can do, and you can start to get in all these different kinds of improvements. The worker has health ratio, and he also has fatigue. Now this is where things start to get interesting, because Civ, there's lots of different ways to kind of approach a Civ-like, as it were. And so you have a game like, for example, like John Schaefer's At the Gates last year that came out, the upcoming Humankind, and what can you do to compete with Civ, or what the case might be. And I think it's a challenge to not just become another Civ, And one of the coolest things in this game that the Johnsons have done is down here by the crown you have order, or this is legitimacy, sorry, down here by the scrolls I have orders. So I have 4 orders left. I'm halfway through or more than halfway through my turn. Now, if I want to end my turn now, the unused orders convert to gold.
Oh, interesting.
And so if you wanted to, if you weren't super active, you could just save up your gold a lot early on in the things. But actually what I like about it is, and if I can find a scout here that hasn't been used much, this guy, now he still has some moves left. So let's go ahead and send him. That's 1 order.
Okay.
I have 3 orders left.
And I guess now, these little settlements next to these are barbarians, I'm assuming? Thracians?
Yeah, so these are kind of like quasi-organized barbarians. So you kind of, it's a little bit like if people have played the Amplitude games, the kind of 4X games that really kind of went into this in a big way, both Endless Space and Endless Legend, of kind of trying to give the barbarians more of a personality and everything else and more of a structure. The Thracians are down here. The Thracians and I get on pretty well. The Gauls and I have fallen out pretty hard. I'm basically fighting the Gauls. And this city here used to be a Gaul encampment that I destroyed and rebuilt up as a city. So they're not at the level of kind of competing civs. They're very much, and so, you can't, we'll look later at the different kind of groups you can pick. You can't be the Gauls.
Right.
They're not an option for you. But they're kind of a semi-organized or not a completely faceless barbarian group. And then fascinatingly, there's a lower tier right here. This is the good old-fashioned civ-style barbarians.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So it kind of sounds like a little bit like a less complicated version of the city-state system from, I think it's Civ 6 is when they started. Maybe that was Civ 5 also.
That might have been 5, yeah. No, it's very, very similar, and it's quite interesting because the barbarians so far, and the tooltip kind of came up when you first encountered them, they basically say, these guys just want to fight you. There's no real kind of interest. The Gauls, Thracians, and so on, you can be friends with them. You can kind of have a little bit, not exactly kind of full diplomatic relationship, but you can have some kind of a vibe with them, as it were, and connection to them. These things are possible, and it's nice. It's a nice little bit of depth. I'm 18 turns in, up here in the corner, so I haven't gone to it too much other than to be friends with the Thracians and attack and basically kill Gauls, because I guess you can take the game player to Civ, but you can't get the Civ out of the game player. But but going back to that, so the scout, for example, down here. Oh, I went to research. Sorry, I'll back to that in a second. I had my scout a moment ago, so his fatigue meter was there it is. Okay, that's included in this is great live TV type stuff. Here's my scout. So it's not going to him because he's fatigued. So you see over here, his fatigue is gone. Now he has 4 kind of globes, and in practice that actually works out to a lot of moves if you don't mind spending a lot of your orders on one unit. Yeah. There's nothing stopping you doing that. And this was awesome at the very opening of the game, because sometimes in Civ games you're kind of pottering around, and it takes a very long time to get anything up and running. Yeah, exactly. And in this game, if you want to just funnel a lot of points into your scout to just do tons and tons of opening up the map and discovering kind of magical ruins, which of course are in this game, and discovering Thracians, for example, you can totally do it. And so it's really nice. And if I wanted to with this guy, you see here now it says 2 orders and 100 military points, of which I currently have 600. So I could force march him if I really wanted to. I just don't, right? So that's a really nice mechanic, and it's up here as well. So there's a couple you can have in the little contextual menu, or it just shows up here in the gameplay. Now it really wanted me to go to the research because I have one upcoming. This is an example, and I'm starting to segue into kind of the more fluffy stuff or the history stuff now, the different kinds of research you can have. And again, it kind of seems very kind of civvy. I always pick navigation because it gives me little things like boats and harbors.
Yeah, sure. It looks like you've got a lot of benefits from picking that one.
Yeah, this one looks good. You're going to get different laws and things.
Including serfdom, that's a huge benefit.
So honestly. There we go. So this is the segue. So there's a couple of different ways that you're starting to see really clear elaboration on the classic Civ model. So if we go up here to, there's a few different things. Let's do the research first. So this is the research tree. And I'm already fairly advanced in it, or relatively advanced in it, as you could see. You started out with stone cutting, ironworking, trapping, divination. I haven't done that yet.
Wow.
All these different
So
things.
This is only 18 turns in? That's pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I'm starting to think now if maybe I'm a bit more than 18. But the first couple, so these early ones did not take a long time to
Okay.
research only a couple
Yeah.
of turns. So it's been going. It's going to start slowing down because if we go over to the right here, you kind of have an economic reform, military reform,
Mm-hmm.
political reform, which kind of reminds me of Hearts of Iron and those kind of games where it's
Yes.
like
Yeah.
you want to pour your research points into some kind of a reward system. Choose this one. But over here, so ballistics, the Latin sale, barding, um, the Sarissa, fiscal policy, and the chain drive. And so that's as advanced as the tech is going to get.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I believe the game is supposed to end. You know, your end date is kind of a 500 AD.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it is
period.
ancient history, ancient world.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I think that's immediately for us as historians. I think that's a huge shift away from the Civ thing. And I think we'll talk about that in a minute. But like, there's no space race in this game, obviously. In fact, but also you don't get to the Enlightenment or to the other kind of classic, whether you want to call them, you know, branching off points like the Renaissance, for example. You're not getting to these kind of birth of Western civilization moments. They're just
new historical paradigms.
Yeah, exactly. They just don't. You know, these other things don't exist. So, and if you go through, then let's go through it briefly. Where we are, you kind of have victory conditions, which are fairly, you know, vague enough. These are ambitions. I'll come back to this in a minute. This is specific to my character. I could choose an ambition, and I chose to control 4 cities. This is my character, my character's wife, and our offspring.
Oh wow! So it looks like there's some RPG elements to this.
Yes,
I see some numbers.
Yes, and so she is giving me a little bit of wisdom, and we produce this offspring, and he's the heir under the current system. And when King Cyrus dies, we'll become King Hormizd.
Oh, interesting. And so you would assume the role of Hormizd.
Yes, exactly. Which is very kind of CK2-ish, which is kind of, yeah, a little bit how it's been sold. And then we go through the laws screen. So as you can see, you have all these very interesting kind of binary, I guess, but kind of a gameplay choices. And so far, I had the choice between slavery and freedom. And I chose freedom. Freedom brings you a research bonus. Slavery would bring you kind of a labor bonus, but also creates potential discontent. And so there's this attempt to kind of embrace, I think, the gameplay aspects of these. Like there's like, so you get 5 extra orders per year with slavery, but a rebellion is possible. Right, and of course, you know, the famous Spartacus rebellion and everything else.
Yeah.
Then we have epics versus exploration, which I haven't made my choice yet. So if I click on exploration here, which will give me scouts can move on water and a movement bonus along rivers, versus ethics, which you know, increases. I actually don't know what the bonus is yet. Sorry, the game.
Maybe some military benefit. It looks like.
Yeah, I think so. So exploration send 400. You know, law. I'm not going to do it just yet. I have up in the corner 600 plus, so I could do it. I'm just going to wait for now, or let's just do it. Why not? So now I've picked exploration, and there's a little bit of a. Looks like there's a bit of a penalty there. So that's it. That's the laws. You can see all these things here: tolerance, orthodoxy.
It's interesting. It's kind of like the cultural system, I think, from Civ 5, Civ 6, where you kind of pick, you know, what kind of cultural setup, what kind of society you would have.
Yes,
it is interesting how it's split into these binaries here. I wonder how they decided on these differences. And another thing that strikes me, you know, in looking at some of these binaries, in particular things like divine rule and secularism, the binary between monotheism, polytheism, between tyranny and constitution. You know, quite a few of these binaries and these ideas are kind of anachronistic to the ancient world,
right?
And so that's curious as to why they would do that.
And as I understand it, these are all tied to specific research, research kind of gates. Where once you, if I can, where's my research gone? It was just over here. Let me see. Labor force is the one that unlocked the choice. You see,
yeah.
Slavery, it opened those 2 choices. The polis, no, the polis was different. Let me see. Yeah, rhetoric opened up the epics versus exploration.
Gotcha.
So you have these. This one opens up tolerance versus orthodoxy. So it's gated in an interesting way. So some of those you cannot reach until later.
So
it seems.
Yeah. So kind of almost it. I mean, from early early appearances, it looks like it kind of funnels you into one path or another. But I suppose that the choices are still open to you regardless of what you picked prior to that point.
Yeah, and I'm not sure yet how it kind of plays out, but I noticed, we were just kind of commenting that I've kind of moved through fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to need 200 research and currently 99 research. But, we take a couple of, in fairness, pretty big jumps and we're up to 1600 research.
Yeah.
So it seems like this area here in the middle of the screen, you can hit you can kind of be waiting. And I guess at that point, you might be more likely to spread out this way.
Yeah.
Down through the thing. So yeah, so it's really interesting, and like I said, you get that kind of early endpoint, at least compared to Civ. You get a kind of a classic. This brings me back. This style,
yes, yes,
database sheet, and then an old style map if you want it. Help screen.
Oh, and then for the map, is it based on Earth or is it a randomly generated map? What's the story there?
This one is randomly generated. I've been reading some coverage, and apparently there are I basically picked a kind of tutorial first game type setup.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not set up in anything, this is not trying to simulate the world or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a fairly modest map. So it's kind of a tutorial game. There we are. I do like, by the way, that you can use the WASD keys to swing around very easily. I feel like all these games have different ways to navigate.
Yeah.
And this game, and maybe it's just because I was young when Civ 4 came out, this game just immediately feels easy to navigate and control them around.
Yeah.
I have had a few bugs where things just stop working, but again, it's an early access game, so that's not,
I do like the
even the fog is nice.
Yeah, I love the look of the map. I mean, it looks very photorealistic just at first blush, and I do also like the fact that they've named mountains and rivers, and it looks like they're using real place names for those. I see the Tigris, and then there's the Danube River not too far away from that. So I think that's fun. It makes it feel as though you are playing on a real map. And I think that's a nice touch.
Yeah, I really like their balance in this game. I think at the moment, at least so far, and I'm sure it'll continue, they did a really nice job of kind of balancing the mechanics, the kind of feel of it as a video game, and kind of the stuff, particularly you and I would like, Bob, that kind of gets into the kind of history element. So the big kind of selling point of the game, and it's funny because I was talking to a student on Discord, my immediate frame of reference is Crusader Kings 2, where we already talked about the laws, and for example, you can have an active religion, which I haven't done yet, and you can start to get in all these different kind of structures as well. So you start to get into these, lots of different ways to quote unquote win the game or play the game or experience the game. But at the moment, you have all these experiences with this main character, and meeting this woman and choosing to marry her over somebody else was a choice. And then a couple of turns ago, she kind of came to me and she was sad and lonely, and I had the opportunity to just ignore her or kind of, spend a little bit of money to money to spend time with her and be her loving husband kind of thing. And that was a very CK2 type thing to do. It was a super CK2. And then if you look here, if you look beside this city, there's this little icon here on the left. This is the Sassanid family, which of course in Persian history long term are very, very famous. And they bring all these different sets of bonuses that you can see there. They have kind of a mostly military focus, and their cities are always connected. And so because they had that connected bonus, my second city went with Sassanid as well. My third city, I chose a different family. I chose the Myrinid family, who are hunters and have a different kind of a setup. And you have four, at least in this game, I had 4 choices with each city that I set up. And so there's this attempt to kind of start to build up a little bit of a internal politics type setup in the game.
I would imagine maybe some internal rivalry and maybe some strife and perhaps civil war. I mean, it seems like if you go to the trouble to doing that, then those could be elements as well.
Yes, exactly. And, and there was kind of this sense of, if you and your wife don't, hang out, then she'll be upset. And if she's upset, there was kind of a lot of hinting at plotting against you.
Interesting.
And the like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's a perfect example. Look at that. So when these things work out. This is exactly the kind of thing that is coming up fairly regularly in the game. So, and the coverage of the game kind of says, this is kind of its big kind of differentiator. But it does happen quite frequently. So here we are. So your heir is growing up fast. How would you like to educate him? And so again, philosophy, there's specific
Oh, okay.
bonuses.
So you're kind of training an RPG character here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very, very, this is again a super CK2 thing. Why don't we go with research? Would be the empire of nerds. And I press my tab key here. So let's so control click to toggle connect to city network mode. This is the kind of boom, and we're done. So did it work? No, it didn't work. So we're kind of figuring it out. Let's see. Well, so here we go. This is live TV again. So I'm kind of
the kids call it live streaming, John.
Oh, he is doing it now. Okay, I know. I'm sorry, but there's been a couple of little kinks like that now because I got thrown off because things don't always work. Because they're working through stuff. But we'll just give our workers stuff to do here, and there's a little highlights over here. So like here, for example, this is a new worker. We can send him. Let's let him build the nets. He can walk on water. That's a useful skill. And with these guys going, and I've got a warrior, so all this kind of fairly standard stuff, and slingers and so on. So this is kind of where you are, and the pace of the game. If I go into my city here, at the moment, I've already got a couple of good tech in, but you've got a settler, worker, scout, militia, warrior, slinger. Not a lot to build just yet. The forum was a relatively recent thing. These are actually recurring.
Yeah, what are those? It's hunt and festival.
Yeah, so the Treasury, Forum, Festival, Hunt, Council. So a council which is repeatable, I guess, is like a Council of Trent type thing, where you hold a council. A hunt, again, I keep using CK2 as my reference, but like this is a common thing you could have in Crusader Kings 2, where you would kind of haul it to gain some kind of a bonus. In this case, you're getting another one of that credit. Festival. So the Forum and Treasury would be the classic kind of improvements. So let's click on the Forum here. What happened? So they're working on it. I'm not sure. Sorry. So this is kind of where we are.
Well, what did it say next to it? If you hover back over it, I thought it said.
So yeah,
hold control to insert at the front.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. To skip ahead of the queue, maybe.
I don't know.
So anyway, yeah. So well, it's down here now as a kind of. That's what it did. It added it to the queue. So let's get rid of the worker. Okay. Yeah, let's get rid of the worker. And now it's building the forum, and so we'll place it, I guess, when it's finished.
Oh, so do you get to decide where it goes after it's finished?
Yes, and then you have these interesting. So you see these little plus signs here. So this is a farm. If you have a farmer there, it will produce more stuff. And so if I click on this, it just adds a farmer to my construction queue. That's my construction queue down here. And add a miner. I don't have the citizens to do that, so the population isn't quite high enough. So let's get rid of him and add a miner. So it's kind of this quick streamlined thing of just immediately, and this is something going back for years, like the colonization game and the remake of Colonization, which was built on a Civ 4 engine, had exactly the same thing where you're allocating different people to areas in the city. And here you can just do it. You can just produce it. So, but I'm kind of intrigued. I mean, I'm looking forward to playing it more. I kind of want to see what the pace is like as you get into the mid game, because the pace so far has been fairly chill. But again, having those scouts being able to basically, move around. So here's a scout of mine. So let's give you guys an example of just what he can do before force marching him. So he can go all the way over here.
Wow, it's pretty far.
Kind of jumped ahead there. That's pretty good. And so in the early stages of the game, that's fantastic. Because you can really open up massive areas of the map. Certainly compared to a classic kind of Civ game. So that's it. So let's zoom through here and end the year, and let's do a couple of, let's see if something can happen. So this is interesting. I didn't actually realize the Vandals and I were fighting, but let's just make that happen. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Those are
nice.
Here. So, and that's the kind of example. It doesn't get super in depth or anything, but you can have aggro or lack thereof with the Vandals, with the Thracians, with the Gauls, and let's cheat and let's see if fun stuff happens. Yeah. So you see here just how frequently these things are happening. This is Romulus. One of the brothers has supposedly founded Rome.
So this is a message from a competing
Yes.
civilization, basically. Gotcha.
Yeah, so the Romans, actually we see it up here, the Romans are the only other civilization I've encountered in this game.
Okay, I see.
And
Gotcha.
again, it's a small map and it's a tutorial, so it may be I've introduced them before, so I can decide to ignore him and get legitimacy, or we can be friendly, and let's just pretend it never happened. Useful international relations tool there. That's kind of where we are. Do you want to have a little look and see kind of the available playable characters, for lack of a better term?
Sure, yeah. Let's take. And I would say, you know, what I've seen so far, I think it's interesting to me that they incorporate so many elements of CK2, but it seems a little bit more streamlined, a little bit easier to understand the consequences of it. And I also really like the fact that it does give you those options, those opportunities to make a decision, you know, and you think about kind of Sid Meier's classic line about civilization, you know, a good game is a game that gives you opportunities to make interesting decisions. And so if anything, this game gives you the base level of civilization, gives you the kind of personalized aspects, RPG elements of Crusader Kings 2, and marry those two things together, so it gives you an increased level of interesting decisions to make.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, and people who listen to the podcast or watch videos might have gathered I really like CK2, but you know CK2 is difficult to get into. This has been really easy to get into, and I'm curious to see how it kind of pans out, because I think they are setting it up so you can be an inward-looking empire and have fun with the game. And again, because you're not going to become the classic kind of jokey at the lower difficulty levels, you know, you have the nuke and Abrams tanks, you know, against chariots. It's like, that's just not going to happen in this game because you can't get that far. And then we look at the quote-unquote playable characters. So I was Cyrus of Persia, my last game. And so you have this really nice little written bio, which they kind of, you know, they foreground. And then you can click over here.
And I like how he's stating this bio in the first person. So this is like, the leading, you know, the protagonist in your in the novel that you're reading. I think it helps other characters or other players to, you know, perhaps get into the character more if, you know, you were taking on the person who is referring to themselves, right? So
and we look in, you know, we'll have maybe a guest in the future to discuss kind of the quote unquote ancient cultures in the game, but there's something very there were definitely societies that kind of functioned this way, and the sources they're left behind. So one of my favorite super nerdy tweets in this global crisis has been this guy saying, I'm going to go out and leave a stone bearing inaccurate historical information in my backyard to screw with future historians, you know. This is kind of like a classic kind of a thing. And then it has the, you know, his stats, including the 4 families that you're kind of buying into here.
Okay, interesting. So you get a sense of those.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. That's interesting.
Yeah, and so you can, so it's nice. So there's all these, at least so far, I think it's doing a very nice job of giving you, hey, we're going to give you a bunch of layers here. Because you could just pick Cyrus and just do Sassanid for all your cities if you wanted to. But it's giving you kind of layers. So there's Cyrus of Persia, Romulus of Rome. Again, you know, as you see, son of the god of Mars, and Romulus not really, you know, wasn't actually a person. Romulus and Remus, the 2 legendary brothers who supposedly founded what was basically the town of Rome for a few centuries before we get the. So again, this is it, and so he
it does have the she-wolf story in there.
Yeah, yeah. So, right, exactly. And so we come back here. We have Philip of Greece.
Okay.
Philip II of Macedon.
Father to Alexander.
Right, and so again, a kind of nice little, you know, not the super obvious choice, kind of little, you know, not deep cuts per se. Well, no, they're kind of deep cuts. They're kind of, you know, nice choices. So Hatshepsut of Egypt. I'll be honest with whom I don't know very much. Dido of Carthage. So, you know, there's this kind of mixture here between the kind of the people that we know existed and the kind of mythical type. Nebuchadnezzar of Babylonia. I like the way his bio ends, just nice and clear. You know, I am Nebuchadnezzar, and so you see the fairly consistency across it. Shurbanipal of Assyria, and I also like, at least again playing the game so far, the kind of I mean, Rome is there, but and Egypt is there, but they've kind of sidestepped I guess they've gone beyond quote unquote the obvious playable civilizations without it feeling like a deliberate attempt to avoid the obvious, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
this is all perfectly organic and just seems really interesting. And
well, and it fits the time period really well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and I think that you know, you've got 7 leaders here, and I think that works pretty well because you're talking about a relatively limited time period if you're thinking about like how long it takes to play the game. And I would assume that the maps aren't quite as big as what you would get in Civilization. So I think that that number of leaders makes a lot of sense and would fit that style of gameplay. And then also, you know, I think that you've got a list of leaders here who are probably really well known to history buffs, but maybe not so well known to to incoming players, new players to history games, and so it's good to have kind of a diverse body of leaders, and then also to have female leaders as well, and very important female leaders as well. So I think this all makes sense to me. I think this works. I like this,
and I love the way the game looks. I love these portraits of these guys. We go with Dido here, Carthage, because she has elephants, which is awesome. Turreted elephant. So I give you a quick look at building a game. Bring it up. So difficulty, they have a nice little kind of nice little bit of kind of fluffy descriptions, which are cool.
The great, that's good. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. So we kind of we could random or a pre-made. So you have different. Again, I haven't really encountered that too much. So let's make it a huge map just for fun. And then you have more options if you want them. So this is all very familiar to anyone who's ever played a Civilization game, I think. The nice little points victory and things like this here. So
what's the center bias? What's that?
I don't know. And I just pressed start game. So
okay. Well,
sorry about that.
It'll be a mystery that I will reveal in time.
In follow-up discussions of Old World. So a quick look. So this is how they start you off. Kind of holding your hand a little bit. So I'll just go ahead and click on my unit, and you see, so this is what it looks like when you're founding a city from the start. You can choose your families, and so I'll just pick sages, because Bob, you and I are sages, tribute to our education and achievements. And here it's explaining orders. So you know, they're down here, and as it says there, you know, you could just end turns and just save money if you really wanted to. Let me see. So I have a worker here, and so it's going to talk us through all this. This is interesting. So I guess I could disable the tutorial, but sure, it's no harm.
No, it's not a big deal
for this video, not at all. So let's see. Do I just have a worker? The slingers. This is your
slinger.
Hang on. This is your David and Goliath, and this is the scout. So let's have a quick look again to demonstrate just how much we can do. So they will make you stop at the fog of war, which makes sense.
Sure.
So that's 2 orders just to get up there. He's a little bit fatigued, but he's okay. Another order. Another order. And now you could force march him if you really wanted to. But that's, you see, so you can see how in the early game, especially if you had 2 scouts, you can really start to kind of get out there and do stuff. And you know, absolutely. You can find, there's ruins, like there's one right here, for example. Let's see if the worker can help me. So classic, again, 4X game type stuff. So I think she commands, bring the wall to Carthago. So there you go. So this is where we are with Old World. I mean, I think I definitely recommend the game, even though they're still working on it, but very, very promising. Even if you want to wait for the full release, I think this is a really, really, it's also a fun game. It works really nicely. And then historically, like we were saying earlier, I think this kind of decision, this Old World focus, I don't think that having an Enlightenment, a Renaissance, an Industrial Revolution automatically kind of gets you into, you know, a kind of a didactic way of telling history or whatever. But on History Respawn, we talked about Civ games a lot. And something that comes up a lot is this kind of, you know, Whig history or kind of, you know, progressive history kind of view of the world, that things get better all the way to putting a man on the moon. And this game just kind of sidesteps that. Doesn't necessarily refute it per se, but I think it just gives the kind of the historical aspect of a really interesting spin.
Yeah, and I think from the perspective of game mechanics, that's also helpful. I mean, as you mentioned, you're not going to get into a situation where, you've got tanks and your enemy has got slingers, right? Or
Right.
catapults. And I also think it probably gets through a lot of the busyness that seeps into civilization kind of late stage after you get through the Industrial Revolution, where you've got dozens and dozens of units, you've got dozens and dozens of buildings that you could construct, you've got all of these different mechanics going on at the same time. And I feel like, as somebody who's played a lot of Civ, that can get really frustrating. And it's very often the case that I'll stop playing the game of Civilization around the time that I get to the Industrial Revolution, simply because
Right.
I've had my fun, right? The fun part is over and the rest of it is just going to be tedious work.
Yes. And, we'll have to see. It's a 4X game, but like I think you can kind of see they've thought about this stuff.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you hear that, Soren Johnson worked on Civ 4. To what extent are we going to have to kind of, sit through a game that maybe it feels dated, or the things that are important to him just aren't that important to the player. But so far, at least, I think we're kind of, early signs are very, very promising.
Yeah.
That he's it's a streamlined version of a really, really good game.
Yeah. And I think despite the Civilization kind of lineage to this game, I think it is making a wise decision in adding in mechanics and ideas from Paradox titles and from CK2 in particular, when it comes to kind of the storytelling narrative aspect, and then also the kind of RPG elements to the characters and the leaders that you're playing. I think that's a really wise decision. And I think, for people who are not interested in classic Civ, they could find those other mechanics compelling. And
Right.
I think it's a good bet. It's the kind of bet that if I were a game designer, I would probably make right now.
And it fascinates me, because I think we saw a lot of this in Total War 3 Kingdoms as well, where you could really lean into character interaction more. In fact, Total War 3 Kingdoms is super interesting because it gives you these two choices. Do you want to kind of play a Total War game or a much more kind of fluffy character-driven game? And for us as historians, that's, agency, right? The magical word. So you start to kind of mess around with what, I'm the game player, I can decide what these guys do, So here we go. So the Danes, you see it. So limited diplomacy, generally coordinated the way opposing nations are. And that's the Danes. So that's it. I think that's kind of as far as I've gotten Old World. But like I said, really promising. I think we'll definitely revisit it on History Respawned in the future. Certainly when it comes out formally, I think we should totally come back to it.
Yeah.
But no, it's really good, and really exciting.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for showing me what you got.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Look forward to talking with you soon, and I hope everybody watching enjoyed it. Feel free to reach out to us. You can find us on historyrespond.com, on youtube.com/historyrespond, of course. And if you want to support History Respawn, that support is always very, very welcome. You can find us at patreon.com/historyrespond. And if you don't know about our fantastic podcast, right, Bob, our award-winning, in my mind, podcast, you can find us on History Respawn, where all good podcasts are shared and broadcast. So, I'm going to go off to build some farms and roads here. And thanks, everybody.